My name is Jim Conaway, and this video presentation is being completed for William Woods University EDU 503 Sports Law class. This particular case study for my Week 6-1 graded assignment is Foster versus Board of Trustees for Butler County Community College. I found this case more interesting in comparison to other cases in chapters 2, 5, and 6 because I really had a difficult time of believing some of the defense arguments that the Board of Trustees in this case attempted to use when the institution was clearly in the wrong. This case, meanwhile, shows the importance of using good and sound judgment on the part of directors and coaches. This case arose out of a motor vehicle collision that occurred on the intersection of Airport Yoder Road and US 50 Highway in Reno County, Kansas on March 22, 1987. Plaintiff Christopher Foster was a passenger in a car driven by George Johnson. Gregory A. Clark was traveling east on Highway 50. Johnson failed to stop at a stop sign on Airport Road and collided with the tractor-trailer rig driven by Clark. Johnson, in turn, died as a result of injuries he suffered in the accident. Foster and Clark were seriously injured. Foster, meanwhile, was a native of New York and a high school senior at the time of the accident. He was visiting Kansas on a recruiting visit at the request of defendant Randy Smithson, the head coach at the time of the Butler County Community College men's basketball team. Johnson, a volunteer employee, picked up Foster at the Wichita airport at Smithson's request. Smithson had previously taken several other recruits to Hutchinson to view the National Junior College Athletic Association National Basketball Tournament. Contrary to instructions given by Smithson, Johnson took Foster to Hutchinson to watch games. Johnson telephoned Smithson from Hutchinson just prior to the collision. Smithson, who had given Johnson money to buy Foster dinner, told Johnson in turn to bring Foster to El Dorado, which is where the Butler County Community College campus is located. Johnson was en route to El Dorado when the collision occurred. Johnson, meanwhile, did not have a valid driver's license at the time, nor was his vehicle properly insured or legally registered. His permission to transport Foster was in violation of school athletic policies and the procedure manual. As for the arguments on both sides, Foster's side argued that Butler County was responsible for the accident since Johnson was given permission by the coach to transport Foster during the course of his recruiting visit. Foster, in turn, Johnson, in turn, was responsible for the accident and damages since he ran the stop sign and was not using headlights at the time the accident took place in the dark. Smithson admitted to instructing Johnson to transport Foster, and in receiving a phone call from Johnson to transport Foster to El Dorado instead of Hutchinson, as in previous instruction. The Butler County defendants argued in its motion for a new trial. They used 4 arguments. The first was the verdict was made in contrary to the evidence. The amount of the damages awarded was so excessive that it appeared to have been based on passion and prejudice. The evidence was insufficient to sustain a verdict, and for the court improperly allowed the jury to consider testimony regarding Johnson's lack of liability insurance. The Butler County defendants also tried to argue that Foster was guilty of negligence in that he did not try to remove himself from the vehicle while Johnson was operating it without headlights. As for the court findings, the court awarded Foster $2,031,300 in damages and $271,800 to Clark. The original award was $2,257,000 to Foster and $302,000 to Clark. But when the accident reconstruction witnesses recreated the scene of the accident, it was determined that Clark was responsible for 10% of the accident due to speeding and not paying full attention at the time of the accident. In the appeal, the motion for a retrial was denied to the defendants. The court ruled that the awarded amount was proper and fitting when one considers the amount of enjoyment from life that was lost, past and future medical expenses, and lost past and future income. It was determined that Clark suffered a serious back injury and hourly employment at McDonald's was the only source of income that he could find. As far as the implications for the athletic activities administrator, I found this case to be a good example of how wise it is for the athletic administrator and coach to use the side of caution when making what seems to be a small, ordinary decision. In this case, the coach would have been wiser to have used extra funds to transport the recruit by cab, which in turn would have been insured, than to have had a volunteer employee without a driver's license in an uninsured and unregistered vehicle. While I was a coach and an athletic administrator in the Kansas City School District, it was commonplace for coaches to use their personal vehicles to transport athletes to and from practices and contests. When the district policy was changed to forbid this practice, I did not like it at first, but now I can fully understand the need for a policy change of this type. Another item of interest is that Randy Smithson eventually went on to become the head basketball coach at an NCAA Division I Wichita State University.